Did we hear a call to order?
Yes.
Okay.
We're as orderly as we're going to get.
Yeah, okay, got it. Roll call, we are actually all here. Can I get a motion for approval of
Move
minutes?
approval of the July 18th minutes.
I'll second that.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye, all right, we're moving on to my favorite word, quadrilogism. I'm so glad these are recorded. It's going to be memorable moments.
We love you.
I know. So let me in and give me like,
So how you
I
gonna
need-
do
I need
on the
jokes.
word assemblage?
that I can do. I don't know why. It just like the Q and the U and gets me. Anyway,
Kentucky, you have a hard, Tennessee, you have a hard time.
oh, is that what it is? Because I'm from Tennessee. Thank you, Florida Gator. All right, so we're moving on to NPH-1, Pepperwood Assemblage, PUD. See, I told you I could got that one. Zoning master final. We'd like to ask any interveners.
There are no interveners.
Okay. Ex parte,
I have no ex parte
I
communication.
have no.
gentlemen.
I have none. I do.
Okay. Recuse yourself.
Do you speak to somebody about it? No. Okay, then you don't. But Mr. Hartman does have a conflict. His son was the broker and is listed on the disclosure of interest, so he has filed his Form 8B and will not be voting on this.
Okay, understood.
Oh, I'm going to talk.
No, he says his soapbox. He's always got to get on it. All right. So at this point, I would like to introduce staff to present their.
We need to swear in the witnesses.
Oh, I'm sorry. Yes, I'm sorry. I'm a little off today. Please swear in any witnesses that will be testifying today.
Raise your right hand. Do you swear or affirm that the evidence you're about to give will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
One of the many reasons.
I know, one of the many things. Okay, yes, now back to this. Staff will be presenting
All right.
the project at this time.
Thank you. Members of the
Brian.
LPA,
Sorry. I know, sometimes the names are not right, so hopefully you're Brian, so,
I'm Brian.
okay.
For the record, Brian Elam, Principal Planner with the Growth Management Department. A copy of my work history has been filed with the clerk. This is a request by HJA Design Studio LLC on behalf of Jam Z Properties, Inc. for approval of a planned unit development PUD zoning agreement, including a master and final site plan for an approximate 29.25 acre property located between Southeast Cove Road and Southeast Salerno Road, west of Legacy Cove and south of Fern Creek. Included with this application is a request for a certificate of public facilities reservation. The proposed development includes 43 single-family lots on approximately 29.25 acres, resulting in a gross density of 1.47 units per acre, which is below the 2-unit per acre density allowed by the estate density 2-unit per acre future land use. This proposal includes approximately 2.5 acres of right-of-way dedication to Martin County for a right-of-way along Southeast Martin Cove Place, Southeast Pepperwood Drive, and Southeast Cove Road. The proposed master final site plan includes a total open space of 76% and 6.95 acres of freshwater marsh wetlands, 4.41 acres of wetland buffer, and 0.29 acres of upland habitat creation protected under a preserve area management plan that includes the removal of exotics and restoration of these areas with native plantings. The property consists of 3 undeveloped parcels lying within the primary urban services district and will have access to the full complement of public services. The parcel abuts a single-family lot to the southeast, undeveloped lots to the west. On the north side of the parcels abut Southeast Martin Cove Place, which is only partially opened across the 2 northern parcels. The east side of the property abuts an unopened Southeast Pepperwood Drive right-of-way that this application proposes opening a distance sufficient to provide access to the east side lots. Subject property has the estate density 2 units per acre future land use designation and the RE 1/2A residential estate district zoning. Access to the site is proposed from Southeast Cove Road down here and Southeast Martin Cove Place. The 22 lots located on the west side of the property will have access from the Southeast Cove Road, while the 21 lots on the northeast side of the property will have access from Southeast Martin Cove Place. 10 of the lots on the north side will have driveways on Southeast Martin Cove Place, while the remaining 11 lots will access the site via the extension of Southeast Pepperwood Drive to the development's private roadway, Southeast Mandy Place. Excuse me. Article 3, Division 5 of the Martin County Land Development Regulations defines the purpose and intent of the planned unit development as follows. The planned unit development, PUD, is an alternative to the standard zoning district in which the landowner and the Board of County Commissioners negotiate the zoning standards that will apply to the specific parcel of land such that the resulting development will be of superior quality and design while protecting the health, safety, and welfare of the general public. The PUD zoning allows flexibility in regard to standard zoning requirements found in the land development regulations, but must be consistent with the requirements of the Comprehensive Growth Management Plan. The planned unit development is intended to be mutually beneficial for the landowner and the Board of County Commissioners. The Pepperwood Assemblage PUD proposal includes smaller lot sizes and setbacks compared to the existing RE 1/2A zoning, and an increase in allowed height of 5 feet from 30 to 35 feet, which is allowed by the comp plan. All property owners have the right to transfer 1/2 of the wetland acreage density to upland areas on any site which contains wetlands if they comply with the provisions of Martin County Code. Section 4.2F of the Land Development Regulations and the Comprehensive Growth Management Plan Policy 9.1G.2.8 address these requirements. This proposal was submitted for review as a planned unit development. The property contains wetlands, and the proposal is within all the allowable thresholds necessary to allow the use of density transition provision. In return, this proposal offers the following public benefits: a multimodal sidewalk within Pepperwood Road right-of-way and the 30-foot existing road easement from Martin Cove Place to Cove Road. This includes the removal of exotics and path lighting. Construction of an 8-inch gravity sewer along Southeast Martin Cove. This extension will provide the opportunity for future connections by surrounding residences to the north and requires the existing road to be reconstructed entirely to install it. And the owner will purchase a traffic preemption device. It's approximately $6,000. This is an overview of the proposed 10-foot meandering multimodal sidewalk, which will provide a pedestrian path from Martin Cove Place to Cove Road and includes path lighting. Also, really, it provides pedestrian access, I think, from Salerno. It'll be a path from Salerno all the way through to Cove. Development review staff have found the JMZ Properties, Inc. application to comply with all applicable regulations in the Comprehensive Growth Management Plan as detailed in the staff report. Staff recommends approval of this application, which includes a resolution for rezoning, PUD zoning agreement, preserve area management plan, and resolution accepting right-of-way dedications along Southeast Martin Cove Place, Southeast Pepperwood Drive, and Southeast Cove Road. And that concludes the presentation. I'll be happy to answer any questions.
Gentlemen, open for questions?
The buttons don't work.
You gotta get close like this.
So you mentioned that the intermodal pathway would connect Salerno to Cove. I don't think it actually does. I don't think that this applicant is proposing that, but we'll hear from the applicant.
Well, there's a road, from Salerno to down to Pepperwood, so they are not constructing the path all the way up to Salerno. But right now, there's no path through Pepperwood down to Cove Road. So by opening that up, there is an access for people on Salerno to come all the way down the existing road, plus using this.
But you're not
It's
calling
public.
that a part of the public benefit, are you?
That's
The
what,
multimodal path that I showed you here, this is.
That's a sidewalk. not
That's a
road.
sidewalk. And that's not the proposed sidewalk that would go to Salerno, because
there's none there.
there's none there. So you can't call that part of the public benefit if it isn't there.
That's exactly my point.
Well, this is what the owner is proposing to construct, so that is a public benefit. They're
No.
constructing that, they're removing the exotics in there, they're planting it with native plantings per our direction, and they're creating that pathway down to Cove.
Madam Chair,
Yes, sir.
Paul Schilling, Growth Management Director, for the record. So the applicant is opening the right-of-way with the opportunity for the multimodal path. There are existing facilities, I believe, and they can speak to this in just a moment, to the north that will provide there is no pedestrian access there at the moment, but it will provide for that opportunity.
Understood.
Thank you.
Any other questions, gentlemen?
So can you tell me what the traffic controlling device is for $6,000?
I was going to ask that question too.
I believe that's a device that the fire department uses that interacts with our traffic
Open the
system.
gate.
So it's a gate opener,
It changes the light, the actual traffic light when they drive by.
traffic light that's going to be there?
No, they're just buying one for the area, not for right there. It's just a public benefit. They're donating it to the fire department to use in the area, so it's not going to be used in that development.
But Cove Road is already a disaster.
It's a terrible place.
And the school is expanding,
Yep.
and it's,
It's right across from Anderson Middle School.
So because the road's not where it needs to be in a service way, then you're going to tell this property owner they can't do what they want to do?
Yes.
That's not that's not the property owner's fault, that's the county's fault for not planning ahead.
but maybe we could get to the point where I want to develop a property, I have the money to do it, and I have to pay a tax. I have to pay a stamp tax that's going to go to develop those roads the way they should be.
I think we should go back on,
Yep, okay.
let's go back to the
Well, let's
process.
hear the
We're not
applicant.
talking
Nice
questions
job, Tom.
amongst ourselves.
Okay,
Let's-
can-
let's-
Madam Chair, Elise Elder, Deputy County Attorney, can I just speak to that issue?
Yes.
Under Florida law, a local government cannot deny an application just because a road is failing. They can't require the applicant to even bring the road up to standard. The only thing that you can do is require the applicant to pay its proportionate share. So if a road's failing, that's, under Florida law, that's not sufficient grounds to deny an application technically, so.
And is the road considered failing?
Not that I'm aware
No,
of.
but, no, I'm not saying that road is.
I'm just asking,
It's a
because
D
it is
minus.
Cove Road.
It's a D minus.
But we,
Hold on one second.
under Florida law, does not mean it's failing, correct?
No, concurrency no longer seems to exist.
Okay.
Okay. As we've talked amongst ourselves, we would
Yeah,
like
you
to
have-
welcome our applicant. Please introduce yourself.
Hi, everybody. Good evening, and thank you for your time tonight. I'm Erica Beitler with HJ Design Studio, and thank you, staff. We've been working diligently together for 2 years on this project because we believe that it is a good project and meets the criteria of the area. And to speak on the multimodal path, yes, it is just expanding the opportunity for the existing road and the neighborhoods to the north to have access pedestrian-wise to Cove Road, and it will increase the safety for the kids that are going to Anderson now. And the ability for the parents and stuff to help pick them up via a productive way rather than limiting the road usage of Cove Road. So people who live in that northern neighborhoods, they don't have to get onto Cove Road per se, and they have a safe access to pick up their kids. That's one of the benefits. But also another benefit is the utilities. We're extending the 8-inch sewer along southeast Martin Cove to modernize that area and to give an opportunity for the existing houses to be able to connect to that if they choose.
Did
Wanna-
you want your,
Oh, I mean, they did such a good job on the presentation. It's a little redundant,
Chair?
but.
Yes?
How many existing houses are there?
So there's existing, you mean proposed on the site
No, not
plan?
proposed. You said they would help the existing housing. How many existing houses
There's
are
Fern Creek,
there?
PUD, I don't know how many per se are in there.
The legacies are already on.
The legacies are already on there, but it's really to connect to the Fern Creek properties. There's, I think, a couple half acres out there and some I don't really know. I don't have the property appraiser
Okay,
on,
thank you.
yeah.
Erica, do you have your notice
I do.
that you need to turn in? Thank you.
See, that's why we have
I
it.
knew I needed something. I skipped.
Thank you.
Uh-oh, I have extra information in here. I think that's, yeah. We met the requirement to the 14-day notice, for the record.
All right, fellow board members, any questions for our applicant?
Yeah, you haven't really told us much about what you're going to do to improve the drainage in this area. This is the headwaters of Fern Creek. It is already constrained. It is already an area that is prone to flooding, and it's getting worse. What does your project do to improve that circumstance? And some of what was in the report to me indicated that there was going to be some reconstruction of the wetlands, as well as just removing exotics. Can you go into some more detail about that?
Yes, I'm not the environmental or the PE on this, but I do know that there is a perimeter berm that will be in the back of the lots to help, keep all of the drainage in, not just going right into the wetlands. So there'll be some sheet flow. There's a chain of dry retention ponds. Do you have my presentation, Brian, that we can pull up
was
the
just gonna
graphic
ask that.
slide? Yeah, thank you. I think it's slide 7. We're all visual learners here. Well, I don't know about that, but I am.
I like drawings.
Learners.
I'm not a wordsmith, so.
Feeling I
It's a long day.
screwed that up.
Next, yeah. Okay, so in this graphic, you can see the orange lots. There's 22 on the, let's just say, the west side that accesses off Cove, and then there's 21 off of the Pepperwood and Martin Place. So for the west side, there is a chain 1, 2, 3, 4, and one small one behind lot 22, dry retention areas that will capture, treat, and then I believe discharge into like the typical system does for these developments. But we will definitely, I can't really speak onto exactly how the stormwater works, but it will be treated and keep the existing flow as it needs to, because this is an important place for that flow to go north and to south. So we're really not going to be impacting that area, and it's going to be, signage and upkept, so there's not public access to it at all. Then you can see on the east side, there's up by lot 23, there's a dry retention area. By lot 36, by the roundabout, and then into that lake. So there will be discharge into that lake as well. And so it's an open flowing system, not just going to be pooling water in a certain area and then discharging into the wetland.
Does your preserve area management plan go into those areas that are not shaded by the coloration?
Like the existing wetland areas? Yes. There'll be exotic removal, and I don't have the PAMP in front of me, but the county is always so good at making sure that
Right. Well, in the document, you all indicated that there was going to be substantial replanting, not only in the upland areas, but also in the wetland areas. And I didn't see a planting guide or any part of that, and often that is part of a PUD agreement.
Certainly. Well, if we need to, we can have our environmental consultant put in a graphic, a typical of what that planting would be. And as necessary, we can make sure that that's addressed.
Appreciate it, thank you.
You're welcome.
Gentlemen, any further questions for Ms. Erica?
Public?
Public comment.
I'm on it. Thank you. I told Jim to remind me of what I need to do. Any other questions for the applicant at this time? Okay, we're going to move on. Didn't have any interveners. Do we have any public comment? Miss Erica, you're dismissed.
Okay,
Sorry,
thank you.
I feel like I'm-
appreciate
Thank you
your
very
time and
much.
Like the
consideration.
judge up here, you're dismissed. I do not have anything in front of me for public comment. So we will move on
The only
to,
public comment was this.
but we don't read it.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, amongst ourselves we do, but no one's here to present it, so. Acknowledge that, board members, they've looked over that. And any other comments or questions?
Jim, you have anything to say?
I'd make a motion for denial.
I'll second that.
Okay, discussion?
Yeah, why would, explain that?
I don't think it serves any or enough public purpose. I think that the damage to Fern Creek would be substantial. I don't think that any development in this area is a good idea. I think that Cove Road has been allowed to become the problem that it is because we have been permitting these developments. And I have been pretty clear for several years that I will only approve developments on Cove Road that meet those very high standards, and I don't think this one does.
And I seconded Jim because I'm not talking about whether you can develop here or not. I think you can. I think this has just been a poor presentation. No questions that Jim asked could be answered. No questions I asked could be answered. So I don't feel comfortable in supporting something where I don't have answers to my questions.
Okay.
Well, I don't get to vote because this public comment here saying that my son was part of the sale, and this lady had the audacity to think that that would impact my vote.
Part of the public record.
Huh?
It's part of the public
Well,
record.
it's
Yeah, but
immaterial.
it's
He's
in the,
already
it's
done
in the comments, and
Sorry.
that's just, that's just uncalled for.
Just for the record, we would have declared the conflict even if we didn't have
Yeah,
public
but
comment.
just for somebody to make a comment like that in a public comment and send it in, that's just ridiculous. And as far as the project, I've spent a lot of money removing pepper trees. And anytime somebody's going to take a project like this, and if you've ever tried to walk through there, you can't get through there. You cannot do anything in a pepper. And if they get rid of the peppers and they make the water flow easier and better, that's a big environmental impact. Anytime you can get rid of Brazilian peppers, that's a good thing. And if you can get kids that can come from the north and walk through all the way down to Cove Road and go across and get people off of Cove Road, that's a good benefit to me. So, and as far as holding the water, I mean, I kind of know the engineer on this, and being able to improve Fern Creek, I think this will improve Fern Creek. I mean,
don't-
and you're not an engineer, and I'm not an engineer.
That's correct, and
But-
we don't have an engineer here. And so
Well, okay,
But it was engineered by the county. The county's passed on the engineering.
I don't see anything that would make me want to vote for this right now.
that's, so let's stick with the
So we have a
questions.
motion and a
Let's-
second.
I know, and I'm dealing with discussion, so just a second. Let's not have opinions just at the moment, and I understand where y'all are coming from. Paul, you were fixing to say something.
Madam Chair, thank you. Paul Schilling, Growth Management Director. I heard a couple things, but what I want to make clear is that this application is in order and qualifies for an action of approval. This has gone through the full development review process for 2 years with multiple rounds of review. It has been reviewed by all the agencies in the county with compliance findings. So I don't want that to be part of any confusion that may have come about.
I'm not confused.
Okay.
So you've done your engineering studies. The county believes that this is going to be a good thing. Your staff. I mean, as far as the environment, water flow,
The development review team has analyzed this application and found it in compliance. There are no unresolved issues associated with it. That's why it's here tonight.
And the reason why we're up here is because at the end of the day, we're supposed to look at things, not just staff, otherwise it would be administrative review. So I think that Jim has a very good point, and I can't support something when I don't understand how it got here, except you're telling me you did do it.
So you don't trust staff?
It's not trust or not. It's why we're here. We're here to check staff and make sure that the boxes are checked. I don't know whether all the boxes were checked.
What?
Okay, go ahead, Mr. Schilling.
If it helps at all, we have a full team that looks at these applications. We have the county engineer and his whole operation that have reviewed the stormwater, done the stormwater analysis, done the traffic analysis. We have environmental scientists who have signed off on the preserve area. If there are areas that are devoid of vegetation associated with the removal of the invasive material, then those areas will be revegetated as standard throughout the county. The utilities folks have reviewed this application. The whole team has reviewed this application. So I don't want it to be misconstrued as though something is amiss here. The application is in order. Now, if it's at the board's discretion because it's a PUD, I acknowledge that, but I want to make that clear. Now, we don't typically have the 12 to 20 people involved in an application at the LPA meeting to testify, but I would suggest by Mr. Elam's testimony and my testimony that the application is in order.
I don't think anyone is saying that it's not in order. I think there's a major storm outside these doors in the community, and it's about all the yellow signs going up and the way that things are going. And this is great to put this in to get a sidewalk, but we could probably put a sidewalk in for those kids ourselves.
And should.
Well, okay. And I will speak to my knowledge. I'm not an engineer, but I'm an architect, and do not hold that against me. But if you've ever been in a pre-application, did you laugh about that? You know, when you go in front of a staff, it's 12-plus staff members that give you a report. Some conflict, some do not. And you would not be able to move forward with something like this if you did not meet those requirements. I'm not, and chastise me if you want to, I'm not approving or denying it per se, but I know the regiment and regulations we have to meet to get through this. And I've challenged the staff many, many years over projects I've had to do to meet these requirements. And we have to hold the water and things like that. It's not impactful, and the requirements we've had in place for quite some time now is requiring them to do these things that you're looking at. And I not knock anybody's opinion, and I'm not, because that's not where I'm at. I'm just stating code regulations and things that I've had to go through and applications I've had to put in and what they're going through right now. And it's been a 2-year process, and I know what that is like. And I don't see the impact of things that have been mentioned, and I won't even go there because I mentioned we're not getting to each other's opinions and thought process per se. But, you know, let me ask the staff, Cove Road is a Martin County roadway, or is it an NFDOT?
Martin County.
I'm asking.
County roadway, I believe.
It's not- it's
I'm
county
just,
road.
I'm bringing it up because I know sometimes I know the answer, but I want it to be said. Okay, so again, back to some points that were made, illustrating the traffic studies and things like that. That's one of the requirements you have to do with the pre-application. And/or, Paul, correct me if I'm wrong, they probably did a pre-application for
We
this.
may be getting,
Huh?
we may be getting somebody from.
There's a full,
Second.
I'm sorry.
No, go ahead.
There's a full traffic analysis that was analyzed as part of this application, signed and sealed by a PE
Okay, understood.
and reviewed by the county engineer's office.
Understood. Okay, so that is my more than my 2 cents on that. And gentlemen, you move forward. Are you fixing to come to the mic? We have a public comment?
No, that's-
Alicia?
So that's the applicant.
Oh,
so-
applicant, I apologize.
Yes.
Okay.
So it's up to the board's discretion, since you're in the middle of a vote and discussion, to bring the applicant back up to ask.
So I know we have a
Questions?
vote and a second
We're still discussing it.
We
Right.
are
you
still
can-
discussing. I know, understood.
So, I think it would be, it's always best to get more information than less. And so if the
understood.
applicant wants to speak,
Okay.
I would be in favor of that.
Gentlemen, please step forward and announce your name and your company.
Yeah, I'm Donald Barnes. We're the owner of the property, Jams Development, Jams Properties.
Can you just confirm you were sworn in?
Yeah, I was sworn in.
He was, he
Thank
did.
you very much. And I am also just sidebar professional engineer, registered in Florida, North Carolina, South Carolina, Georgia, and Michigan, I think it is. A lot of talk about stormwater up here. If you look at the existing flow rates versus what is coming off the property, after development, we're actually reducing the discharge, certainly cleaning it up. So the project is reducing the discharge from the site through on-site swales, retention areas, stuff like that. Like Mr. Hartman said, we're doing substantial work in those wetlands to clean them up because they're impassable at the moment. They've been, as far as I can tell, they've been the way they have been for 100 years, doing whatever nature would allow them to. We're going in, we're moving the exotics, we're spraying them out. As far as traffic, the traffic, and I'm not a traffic engineer, civil engineer, but not specializing in traffic, but our traffic report denotes that our contribution to Cove Road is de minimis. I mean, this is a very few number of units pushing out on the Cove. Cove is not overburdened at the moment. I mean, mathematically, it's not overburdened at the moment, right? I understand what goes on out there with the schools, but adding these units out there is not overburdening the roadway. And then also, we are proposing less units than we are allowed to by code. If we went out there, based on the current code, we were allowed to, I think it was 50. I think we're allowed 50 units out there, and we're putting in less than that. So I think we've been, good neighbors. We've been working with the staff on this thing for 2 years. I think it's a good project. We're doing more good than harm. So I would urge you guys to reconsider.
Any other, sorry, sir, before you walk away, board members, do we have any questions for our applicant?
No, I think that removing the exotic invasives that are there is something that's necessary. I'm pretty sure that hasn't been 100 years, but it certainly has been a long time. I think that those places, while exotic invasive, are natural, and there is some benefit that those natural systems provide regardless of whether they are exotic invasive or not. I don't know how to quantify the negative impacts of development versus leaving an area natural. I think that there are certainly ways of estimating those natural services regardless. But, it has been a systematic drainage problem that is compounding on itself. And none of the new improvements out there have done beneficial things to the way Fern Creek drains, nor the water quality of the outfall from Fern Creek into the South Fork of the St. Lucie River.
Is that a?
Well, and to your point, you don't know how to quantify it. You're not an engineer. We've got an engineering
No,
staff
I'm not
here.
sure an engineer would. I think an environmental.
And I don't think that
Well, it-
really matters because.
Well, it does matter because we're trying to figure out, is this a project that really works and does us some good?
Well, I'll tell you.
And if we're cleaning out exotics, and I have done it, and I have seen it, if it does, it will improve the water flow. The other thing that's really, really important is that what the community thinks is not what's legal. And I'm cognizant of that. But if they've spent 2 years, and I'm like Nikki, I've worked with the county before. It's a full-blown bitch. I mean, it's no fun at all to work with the county.
We should all go to
But this is a
pre-application.
PUD, and this is
It doesn't matter.
a legal arrangement
Yes.
where the
So
county
if
and
it's
the
gonna
public
improve
is
the water
supposed
flow,
to.
it's worth doing.
But, okay, so we don't
I
want
can't
to
vote
argue, I know, so let's not argue amongst ourselves here, okay? So any other questions for our applicant at this time? I do have one for you. So as the retention on the site, what is the requirements of the county to retain the outflow of storm water on the site?
Are you talking about cubic feet per second? I'm trying to.
25.
I know what it is.
25-year storm in 3 days.
Because I know that.
Well, that's what they said
I
in the
know.
report.
Okay. So Jim answered it for you.
Oh, this is a quiz?
No, it's not a A, B, C, or E, all of the above question. All right, anyway, I just was talking about that. Do we have any other further discussion? Any other questions for our applicant at this time? Thank you for your time. You
Thank you.
are excused. I don't know what to say. That
I just
seems-
want to make a statement.
Okay.
We're
make your
here
statement.
to make a decision based on the evidence that's before us. If the evidence isn't there, we shouldn't be making a decision because we're told that we looked at it and it's great. The applicant should have came tonight with his experts to answer the questions and/or with his studies. I see none of that. So I don't know whether what you say is true. And I do believe you have the absolute right to develop this property. And you have the absolute right to look at, to put more units on there if you so desire. But I can't support something without the evidence. So,
So
So when the county staff.
we've answered that. I'm not going to go there again.
You're going to have
Okay,
to.
don't.
No, I don't.
Hey,
For-
wait,
We
stop.
trust them,
Just a
then what we got them
second.
here for?
Just a second. Elise?
before you vote, I just want to remind the board that this is a PUD agreement. This is not straight zoning. There is discretion because you're agreeing to the terms of what they're proposing. So this is a little different from straight zoning. So I just wanted to make that point clear.
Understood. Okay. Any,
What you wish for.
well, let's just be kind right now because I need a little kindness in my life at the moment. So any other further discussion at this point? Nope, you gentlemen are quiet for once. All right, can we go ahead and,
Nikki?
Yes,
just
sir.
So that we're all clear, a yes vote is for denial in this case.
That's correct.
based on the motion, that is
Okay,
correct.
so everybody understands that.
Great, thank you for clarifying. All right, so all in favor of the motion that has been made?
Aye.
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 Aye. Okay.
You want to have a roll call? Just. All right. I just wanted to clarify it.
No, that's fine.
Okay.
Yeah.
And I'm not saying that staff hasn't done their job at all, but I agree with Tom that we just want to see the Carfax. Sorry.
The traffic study. Okay.
Whatever.
It's not whatever. Stop. You guys just
Could you
be nice.
call the roll?
I did it. Roll call. Bob, Jim, Tom said no or said yes to the denial. I am opposed.
Okay.
So,
It comes out 3-1
3-1 for denial.
with Mr. Hartman abstaining.
yes, we are clear with the denial there, Tom. Got it. Okay.
Thank you.
The last time I have to say quasi judicial.
Good night.
Yep. No, I won't say, I mean, it doesn't say that on here. All right, we are moving on to the next item up. NPH-2, Land Development Regulation 24-6, Article 6, and PAC fees. And we have Clyde. I know you're Clyde, so I can say Clyde is going to be presenting.
Good evening, members of the local planning agency. My name is Clyde Doolin, Comprehensive Planning Administrator. With me is, what is your, oh, yes. Samantha Lovelady.
It's like, I don't know, and looking at me like I. That's on you. Tomorrow you have to answer
I actually
that
do
question.
remember a name, but I am legendary for not remembering names. So Samantha Lovelady, Principal Planner. She's got a lot of experience with impact fees over the years, so we're going to do this together. And shall we?
Yep,
Okay.
you got the floor.
Thank you. Thank you. We're going to try and do this in 2 segments. As you may know, in December of 2023, the Board of County Commissioners reviewed an impact fee study that had been conducted by Martin County, and it had a whole schedule of impact fees to consider, and that was part one. Part two was amending Article 6 of the Land Development Regulations that controls and regulates the imposition of impact fees on development. So what we have here tonight is both parts. We have the proposed changes to the Land Development Regulations, Article 6. There were numerous changes that were necessary to comply with Florida statutes. And because then there have been a number of changes in Florida statutes over the years. The Florida statutes have emphasized, and I'm going to try and go to the section of the staff report where it says that. Where is it? The rational nexus I'm looking for. No, Florida courts. Yes. No.
It may have been
Anyway.
before when Tyson was doing his analysis.
I'm sorry, Mr. Moyer?
I'm just trying to remember where the rational nexus deliberations was, and it may have been up before Tyson was doing
Yeah.
his analysis.
It's above the D.
Yeah.
It's above D. It's one paragraph up here. Anyway, I'll read it to you.
There.
The rational nexus test also requires the development that pays a fee benefit from its use. That's an issue that's emphasized in Florida statutes, and that's one of the reasons why you see a lot of stricken text in the LDR is to take out any text that might not be consistent with that. So there's the dual rational nexus test that determines the validity of the impact fees. It must be based on a connection between the need for the additional facility and the growth in the population that will be generated. That's an important factor in this, and Florida statutes, as I said, have changed a great deal about that subject. So Section 6.8 is on page 10 of the package. Oh, come on. No block. There we go. And it boils down a lot of it to there's categories for impact fees, special revenue categories for each category, libraries, public buildings, law enforcement, fire rescue, parks and rec, conservation and open space, transportation. Some of the names have changed. Instead of emergency services, it's being recognized as fire rescue because that's the way our department is identified. As you can see, a lot of the impact fee fund language has been deleted, and it just boils it down to that the impact fees, the impact fee districts will be applicable to the unincorporated and incorporated areas of the county, and additional direction is provided in the individual interlocal agreements that are established between Martin County and communities like the Village of Indiantown and the City of Stewart. I'm not going to go into all of the details of the changes because they're pretty, they're spread out over the entire document, but they emphasize the same issues that I've mentioned, and it's been revised to focus on just these districts. Second part of the presentation I want to go into is a discussion of what the impact fee changes are in the impact fee schedule. So let's go to 5. So Florida statutes permit the impact fees to go up by a maximum of 50%. And our consultant went in and did the calculations in the impact fee study that's attached and looked at the cost and the necessary fee for each use, such as a single-family residence, 2,300 square feet or greater, single-family residence, 800 square feet or less, hotel, motel, and looked at the cost for each of the facilities provided. In this example, transportation. In another example, building. So they literally dialed in and figured out the cost for each square in the grid, looking at both the facilities on the one and the land use on the other. And so this table is intended to show you how the existing fee for a single-family residence of 2,300 square feet or greater for just the transportation is $4,063. The proposed maximum can go up a maximum of 50%, which is shown here in the 2028 of $6,094. That's 50% over the existing fee. The actual fee that the consultant calculated is it should be a 78% increase. But as you can see in this table, the proposed change doesn't go that high. And in this proposed table, it demonstrates how the fee would actually be going up 12.5% per year over a 4-year period to get to that maximum 50%. And that's all dictated to us by Florida statute. Even though the study showed that the cost is $7,224, a 78% increase for this particular land use and this particular service, this is the maximum that can be done by the fee.
Clyde, can you tell me what that term is, 50% over how long? Is that a 5-year window? Is that a 10-year window?
4-year window.
4-year window, and so we are permitted to, every 4 years, increase our impact fees by 50%?
No, what it,
We would have to go back and do another study and to
So-
document.
So the study already says that we are 28% low.
What do you?
So you're allowed to make an increase once every 4 years. That increase can only be 50% of what you're currently charging. So you have to do a new study. But what they're doing is they're breaking up the increase over the 4 years, so it's proportionately increasing.
And so the last impact fee study was done when?
it was 2019, we hired someone to,
That was the Nichols
That
study?
was the 2013 was the last
but the
study.
last, but we also did one to look at,
Conservation lands.
conservation and also, fiber optics. And that study didn't go anywhere.
That study just covered those two subjects. The last study that looked at the whole package was 2013.
Right. So we're behind on
Yes.
collecting impact fees by a lot.
Yes.
And is there a recommendation in here to do whatever study is required to make sure that we can increase our impact fees as much as we possibly can in the next cycle?
That is not our recommendation at this time. Our recommendation is the fees that you see in the attached schedules, because that would allow us to go forward and then 4 years from now do another study and
At a
consider the-
28% deficit.
and try and improve and cover any deficits at that point.
I see we're just digging ourselves. I mean, at that point, we're already 50% behind ourselves.
It's a requirement of state statute.
I understand what the requirement of the state statute says, but I don't think we're doing our citizenry the justice that they deserve. I think we should be recommending to the county that they do the impact study as fast as we possibly can, so we're not perpetually 25% behind ourselves.
We'll be happy to convey that if that's the recommendation of the local planning agency. The downside of it, I will mention to you, is the threshold for such a study to go above 50% is an extraordinary lift. We would be starting all over again.
And I believe statute requires an extraordinary circumstance.
Since we have to do a study anyways to raise the fees, there is no reason to cloud this, to cloud this article with a requirement. It should be up to staff to recommend it to the commission. The commission should vote yes or no. It's not, shouldn't be in there in case something else develops in those 4 years.
I would like to go on and finish this,
Yeah, I hope you
what's
do.
presented on this
Yeah, let's
page.
finish your presentation, and then we'll continue with questions, Jim.
Thank you. Another example, is the impact fee study recommended that the fire rescue impact fee for single-family dwelling, 2,300 square feet or less, should only increase by 24%, not 50%. And so in this example and in this matrix, you see the current fee is $780 for just that service on just that particular land use, and the proposed fee would go up to $875 in 2025 and $969 in 2026, and it would stay at that same level for the remaining years. So in some cases, we're way behind. In some cases, we can go as much as the fee study would allow. And that's what the proposed fee changes would be over each of the next 4 years. In another example, single-family greater than 2,300 square feet, again, the public building impact fee actually is a decrease. So we are collecting 809 at the moment, and it would go down to 752 for each of the following years. So it's really a mixed bag as far as increases and decreases for the fee schedule. And that's looking at the individual fees for, these are just some examples of individual fees on an individual future land use designation. Now, if we can, I'll turn to page 39, where we have a bit of a comparison between the cumulative, and this is just an example of uses. There's just, not all of the single-family uses are here, not all of the non-residential uses are here, but these are just laid out as an example for comparison purposes, where we are totaling up the transportation, public buildings, and so on like that, all the way across. So the total in this column in green is the total that would be paid in 2028, and you see next to it is the current fee being paid. And you can see for yourself in this sample of land uses how the fees would be up and down depending upon the use.
And the square footage.
Yeah, the percentage is on there. And so you can see the percentages over here in this column. In some cases, we're going down, like in this one, 28%. In some cases, it's only a 3% increase. In some cases, it's showing the maximum 50% increase, depending upon the use and the cumulative application of the fees to each of the facilities. To give you kind of an overall view of how the fees go up and go down depending upon the subject. Yeah. So that's the overview that we have for both the changes to Article 6, necessary to be consistent with state statute, and an overview of the proposed changes to the fee schedule. We would be replacing with the proposed changes. I want to go to 32, 30. This fee schedule, it's not shown stricken, is the existing fee schedule. And when attached to an ordinance, it'll be shown stricken. And then below, by the way, I wanted to mention, no change to the school impact fee schedule, because that's dictated by the school district, not by the board. So the way we've set it up is that there would be an individual table for 2025, and then another individual table for 2026, and 27 and 28, so that you can see each, and if these proposed tables are adopted, people will be able to see in each year what the fee is, and there won't be any math having to be done from one year to the next to show, to understand and know what the proposed impact fee would be for a use.
When is the impact fee collected?
At time of building permit?
Permit, right?
Yes.
It's not at CO, though.
No, it's at time the building permit is issued. And that's one of the other changes that's happening in the LDR that I did not cover. Formerly, in years past, some impact fees were collected at the time of final site plan approval after the site plan would be approved. Some impact fees would be collected then, and other impact fees would be collected at building permit. Florida statute changed a few years ago, and we've already been doing what Florida statute required. And some of the changes in the LDR right now are just really catching up with the changes we had to do in compliance with Florida statute some years ago. That concludes the staff presentation on the changes to Article 6 and the impact fee schedule. Staff recommends approval of the proposed changes and strike and underline to Article 6, and staff recommends approval of the proposed impact fee schedule shown for 2025, 2026, 2027, and 2028. We've set January 1 as the start date because the Florida statute does not allow the impact fee changes to occur less than 90 days after adoption. And we're scheduling this for Board of County Commissioners presentation on September 10, and 90 days plus a little bit would put us right at January 1, 2025. Thank you.
And for the other years going forward, it would be January 21st,
Okay.
January 1st on each of those years as well.
Okay.
Madam Chair, a
Yes,
couple
please.
questions.
Of course.
So we do impact fees. Is there another way that we could collect for the impacts of this without having it as a standard? In a PUD, could we say, we want X to do this? Or must we, or would that be against statute?
I think you're asking if we could creatively come up with another way of
I'm just asking,
collecting
I'm not asking you to do it
for
tonight.
the impact. I don't know what that would be at this point. I'm sure that somebody out there has probably contemplated it, but there definitely is not Florida statute available to guide us on that.
One thing about PUDs, I might add, is that in a development order, I know, for example, Newfield, they're installing parks, I believe, and they're getting an impact fee credit built into that development order for the improvements. I don't know if that's what,
There
Well,
was-
no,
You're
no,
getting
no,
towards-
my question is, if, say, we need a traffic light because this project is going to impact the roadway and it's gonna create a problem, is there a mechanism as part of the PUD process
Part of the traffic.
to have them pay for
We
it?
can offer that as a public benefit.
Can we require it?
It depends on the traffic
We should
study.
be able to negotiate it. That should be.
Jim, can I get an answer from staff?
Relax.
Madam Chair, Paul Schelling, Growth Management Director. There are a couple things with that. One is, to answer your question, yes, there could be a fee collected, and historically, that's been associated with a PUD, and it would be on X number of permits. So, for example, the 50th permit, or whatever the case is, or 200,000 square feet of industrial, that would be the trigger for the traffic signal. The other question was, and it escapes me now.
I don't know if I had another question.
Okay.
There is a mechanism.
Yes, sir.
Under the PUD for the county to say, we're going to need this because of your impact, and we can charge in addition to impact fees,
Yes, sir.
something else. That was
Yes.
really my question.
That was the
Yes.
recommendation. That would be correct, Tom. Jim, I didn't mean to shut you down.
No. I just was saying that, the essence of a PUD is a negotiated agreement.
Agreed.
My question, and I probably should know the answer, and I just don't, is it possible to, within a category of single-family dwellings, increase, if we are showing a deficit of 28% on the 2,300 square foot area, is there a way to throw credits from an area that is not collecting full impact fee within that category to allocate an increased impact fee for those 2,300 square foot units?
No, not.
Answered. I was sorry. I'm nodding my head.
I believe
have
the
no
answer is no.
Okay.
I have another question, and
Okay.
I do know the answer, but I'd just like to get it out there. If there was a home already on the property, then do impact fees apply?
The impact fees run with the land. So, for example, if there was historically a residence, a single-family residence in this case, on the lot, and it's demolished, it runs with the land in perpetuity.
Okay.
So, quick example. So if you demolish a 2,000 square foot home and you want to put 5,000 square foot home on it, you would pay for the difference.
No.
Okay. Does that make sense?
no.
Oh, you don't? That's what it
No.
historically been.
original one.
Or we'll
No,
pay for the
it was
original
like that
one.
years ago, but that's not how it works.
Okay,
How does it
so,
work now?
They used to have like a 50%.
You can,
No, I
you
don't- I mean,
can mow down
50,
an
they would
800
use the
square foot
credit.
house and put 10,000 square feet if
You
the
don't
lot
pay any
allows it.
impact
No.
oh.
The impact was already there.
That's why I was asking the question.
Okay. I,
And is that, excuse me, is that because of state statute, or is that just the way we do it?
It's in Article 6.
It's not,
You get an exemption in Article 6.
Current code.
Is there a reason why we shouldn't change that? Because an 800 square foot house is definitely not the same thing as a 5,000 or a 6,000.
Sorry, I gave an example, yeah.
It's not proposed for change in the LDR, if that's your recommendation.
Well, I'll hold my recommendation until the vote, but
Any other questions at the moment? I do have some. I just want to let the other board members ask any questions per se. So there is when you say a transportation fee, are we adjacent counties and cities, not necessarily the city of Stewart, they have a mobility fee? And how are you handling that amongst the agreement that you have with the city and things like that, and how that transportation money is deciphered?
You want to take?
You guys will look at each other. I didn't mean to
Well,
give you a loaded
the-
question, but
no,
I need to ask it because I
It's not it's a bit complicated in that
understand.
the municipalities, like the city of Stewart and the village of Indiantown, can set up the application of their fees in their own way for a mobility. Ours are not set up to work as a mobility fee. Ours are set up to work for roads and as well multimodal paths and so on like that.
Okay.
And there's a percentage of the county impact fee that they will retain, and then they can apply towards their mobility planning.
Okay. No, and that, I was asking because a lot of that stuff has been intermingled, and there's a lot of lawsuits that are happening because of it in general, of that. So please, Ms. Stephanie.
We have an interlocal agreement with the city.
Okay. And that's what
So they
I'm
pay
asking the
their
question.
city fees.
Right.
And they pay county fees,
But not double dipping.
but not double dipping. In the interlocal agreement, you can have the city pay 33% of a certain category. Each of the categories are laid out in the interlocal.
Right.
And if, like, say, for libraries, the city pays 100% for the libraries because they don't have their own library facilities.
Yeah, and I was.
They do have their own active park, so they don't pay for that.
No, I understand that. Mobility has really been a kind of a contention of the whole entire state.
It makes
in general, so making
sense
sure
for the village and for the city,
Right.
but that doesn't really, it doesn't really make sense for the county.
Understood. I'm not knocking their transportation term per se. I just bringing it to what I've been
Yeah, they do
dealing
pay
with
their
and-
fee, and then they pay sometimes 100% of our fee, sometimes a percentage of our fee.
Understood. Okay. Any,
Do you
No.
have to pay the impact fee? When I look at what it costs on a 1,100 square foot home, and you're, what is it, like $6,000, I think?
I'll go back to
And if you put the school board with it, you're at $11,000. And if you put $11,000 on a mortgage for a young couple, which that's who's going to buy that 1,100 square foot home, and if you put that on that mortgage at 6% interest, it changes your payments dramatically. Is there any way to soften that for young people trying to get started? A credit back to them or something? Because it's a big number when you figure a mortgage, several $100s a month on a
The only-
30-year mortgage.
The only deferral on impact fees is for affordable housing. The impact fees for affordable housing can be deferred for a period of time.
well, define affordable housing.
There's
I know.
the definition covers a number of income ranges, and so I can't recite them to you off the top, but
That's fine.
And then that number changes annually through HUD.
Yeah. And it's a square foot number too, by the way.
but you bring up something I'd like to point to is these numbers in this table are the county impact fees. The school district impact fees are in addition to these numbers
what
I
it
here.
understand
That's
that,
what
but
he
if
said
you
that,
put
yeah.
that on top of, you put the school impact fees on top of our impact fees, and you change it $11,000, whatever that number is, on a mortgage, on a 30-year mortgage, it adds up really fast.
It does. All right, any other questions for staff at this point?
I'll make a motion to accept staff's recommendation with, them at some point looking into whether we should change the way we collect impact fees on an existing lot that had a building on it that had less than what the proposed new.
I'd second that, but I'd also think we should do a study on increasing impact fees as quickly as possible.
All right, that's not a second to that. That's
Well, I
adding to
was
that.
hoping that
Modifying
there
the
could be a
motion.
modified motion.
I don't want to do to my motion.
Okay.
So he has a motion.
I'll
We have
second
Another
Tom.
motion. All right, I'm sorry, you're seconding the motion to Tom. We have another motion from Jim. So
No,
I
I
switch you, but
was just throwing it out there because I think it should be done, but I'm willing to accept the motion as is.
okay. Any other further discussion on that after the motion? I will say, obviously, in my line of business and living here in Martin County, obviously, the impact fees do encroach on that. I do agree with Tom and getting the credit and something that was already built in general. We can't make that change today. We could just make the suggestion for that impact. So without further ado, can I get a vote?
All in favor?
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Rick?
Yeah, that's it.
Oh, you did, okay. All right, it passes. All right, we are,
Thank you, staff.
thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for your time. And remember her name next time, just kidding. All right, sorry. I called her Stephanie, I'm sorry, I did
That's
not
okay.
know better than Clyde.
There-
Yeah, I didn't call her Clyde, yeah. All right, yay, moving on. NPH-3, Comprehensive Plan Amendment 24-2, Overall Goals and Definitions. So bring in the fun stuff. Let's do it.
Thank you, members of the LPA. I'll just do the introduction. This is the first of 3 public hearings that must be considered on Chapter 2, Overall Goals and Definitions. The next public hearing will be before the Board of County Commissioners for consideration of transmittal, and a third public hearing won't occur until next year for adoption. The primary consideration here is making sure that this is internally consistent with other chapters in the plan. Not only are we looking at housekeeping issues with this particular chapter, but we're also looking at making sure that it's consistent with the other chapters that you will also be considering, like Chapter 8 and Chapter 9 later tonight, and so on. And with that, I'll turn it over to Jenna Nobby, our senior planner.
Good job, you knew her name. Go ahead, Jenna.
Good evening, members of the local planning agency. As Clyde mentioned, my name is Jenna Nobby, a senior planner with the Growth Management Department. And before you this evening, we have proposed text amendments to Chapter 2 of the Comprehensive Plan as part of the year-based process for revisions to the comp plan. Many of the proposed changes are housekeeping, but on pages 3 and 4 of the staff report, part of the agenda packet, I'd like to bring some of these changes to your attention. Many cross-references are being made to other elements of the comprehensive plan for internal consistency. That's the basis for a lot of these proposed text changes. So proposed change number 2 revises policy 2.2A with reference to policy 9.1G27 in Chapter 9 regarding the exceptions for altering wetlands. Proposed change number 3 outlines a new policy, policy 2.2A7, with reference to policy 9.1G4, also in Chapter 9, regarding the exceptions to wetland buffer zone provisions. Proposed change number 4 revises policy 2.2C91 with reference to policy 8.1C1 in Chapter 8 of the comp plan. Proposed change number 5 revises policy 2.2C92E to include a sentence about stormwater design And this proposed addition is reflected in Chapter 8 as well in regards to resiliency planning that is mirrored in those proposed changes.
Can I interrupt you for just a sec?
Absolutely.
The 2, 3, 4 items that Jenna mentioned are internal consistency issues between Chapter 2 and existing text in those chapters. But the last one she mentioned is a new policy that's being proposed in Chapter 8. You will see later tonight as it's a result of board direction to do resiliency planning. So it's an example of how we're proactively addressing something here in this chapter.
Understood.
Proposed change number 6 revises policy 2.2C10 with reference to the applicable land development regulations for shoreline protection and shoreline hardening standards. A new objective is proposed, objective 2.2F, and this is also referencing that resiliency planning language found in Chapter 8. And proposed change number 8 is a revision to policy 2.4C1, and this is to change the planning period timeframe from 15 years to 20 years, and this is consistent with Florida statute section 163.3177. There's 2 new definitions proposed for Chapter 2, including enhanced nutrient-reducing on-site sewage treatment and disposal system, in addition to the term resilience, since that is a major theme in some other proposed additions in Chapter 8. And the remainder of the changes for Chapter 2 are housekeeping in nature, updating definitions accordingly, and grammar and spelling. So staff proposes to recommend approval for these changes, and we are happy to go into detail about anything outlined in this staff report, but that concludes staff's presentation.
Okay. Any questions, gentlemen?
I
Yes.
have one. Where did we get the resiliency policy from that you're implementing? Where did that come from?
We'll get into a good deal of detail about that in the
wait for
next
that
one,
then.
but I can tell you that the board considered an agenda item back in 2021 that was presented to them by Kathy Fitzpatrick, our coastal engineer at the time. It was an extensive study that Kathy and her team undertook, and it was back then in 2021 that they directed staff to initiate an amendment to Chapter 8 of the comprehensive plan to address resiliency issues. And as I said, that's attached in your next agenda item, but we're proactively addressing some of those changes in 2
It was
here.
only an internal study that we used.
No, I believe they went out and they had a consultant that went out and did a lot of work on this.
And it also went into the regional impacts of resiliency plan.
Yeah, the Treasure Coast Regional Council. Yep.
So barring public comment, I'll make a motion to approve.
Great.
I'd second that motion.
Second. All right. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Just, we need a call for public
Oh,
comment.
public comment. Anybody want to bum rush us up here? Come on. Make it exciting. Yeah. We're only on item number 3. All right. No public comment. All right. Moving on. All in favor? Let's do that again.
Aye.
Aye. All right. Unanimously passed. All right. We are.
you.
Thank you, members of the LPA.
You're most welcome, Clyde. We are moving on to NPH-4, Comprehensive Plan Amendment 24-08, Coastal Management Element.
Again, for the record, Clyde Doolin, Comprehensive Planning Administrator. With me is Daryl DeLu, Environmental Planning Administrator.
Good evening.
The text changes to Chapter 8 that we're going to discuss with you here tonight are really twofold. One, year-based amendments, which are, and there are very few there. There's just mostly housekeeping on that respect. Most of the text changes that you're going to see in this chapter are really based on a resolution that the Board of County Commissioners, did you want to go ahead? The Board of County Commissioners, as I said previously, adopted Resolution 21-3.32, and after looking at a presentation and approving a presentation, or approving a resiliency study in March 23, 2021.
Excuse me, Clyde.
Yeah, that's fine. The board felt strongly enough after seeing the sea level rise and resiliency report that they initiated an amendment to Chapter 8. And unfortunately, Kathy left us. She's, I think last I heard, traveling New Zealand. So that and COVID, I think, really got in the way of us completing this amendment to Chapter 8, and the EAR-based plan amendments is an opportunity for us to complete it. Amy Eason has come on board and is doing the coastal management engineering, and she is really responsible for a lot of the changes in here. She's gone in and made a lot of the changes based upon the study that Kathy Fitzpatrick had brought forward to the board previously. So this is really twofold. Compliance with Florida I should also note that some of the changes in Florida statutes since 2016 emphasize resilience, and we attach some of that changes in Florida statute to this agenda package. So this resilience is really to comply with Florida statute changes. This is our mandate for the year, and it's to comply with this this amendment initiated by the board in 2021. So this study Daryl's brought up, and Daryl, if you want to go in and talk
Sure.
about.
So this is the sea level rise report that was discussed with the board in 2021. And I'm going to just quickly scroll through this, but as you can see here, it's there's a lot of data and analysis and information in this report. And I'm just going to quickly scroll through.
You think you passed the part that
This is what I want.
Okay.
So when you get to this page of the report, this is why we're here tonight. How do we use all of that information we just scrolled through? Planning and prioritization. So that's what we're here for tonight. We're here to do some comprehensive planning. So there are concepts, planning concepts primarily introduced, and this is kind of the start of a process that's going to be ongoing with future changes in the comp plan, coastal element, and in the land development regulations. And when we get into the land development regulations, that's probably where we're going to get into regulations and regulatory criteria. But right now, we're at a planning stage, and we're just introducing, when you look at the list, there's a lot of items enumerated, but they're basically sprinkling these planning principles for resiliency throughout Chapter 8 of the comp plan. And there's additional resiliency language, as Clyde stated, provided by our coastal engineer, who's now known as our environmental resource engineer, Amy Eason. And those are also required as mandated in Florida statutes for counties to put in their coastal element of their comp plan. So with that, Clyde thought it might be helpful to start with one new policy that we wrote in Chapter 8. And that policy, if you go to your list in your staff report, there's a list of proposed changes. There are 50 proposed changes in here, but again, these are mostly minor resiliency planning concepts that are provided. But I want to go to number 27 of a proposed change in your staff report, and that's provided here as item number 4 as a proposed new policy. And to put this in context, this policy is part of policy 8.1C2, construction activity and estuarine systems and vegetation requirements. So this policy in the plan is established to address shoreline stabilization methodologies, be they nature-based solutions, vegetative solutions, and shoreline hardening that may be required. So we wrote a new policy here for shoreline hardening that may be required when we suffer extreme storm events, and emergency authorizations are issued by the government, and emergency permits are issued to deal with major property losses in certain areas. And we have a poster child, if you will, for this policy here in this development that started to come online after 2000. So as you can see, we're looking at a 2000 aerial image of these waterfront lots that came in to be platted and developed. And with that, they platted a 50-foot shoreline protection zone along the St. Lucie River here. And then we were hit by the twin hurricanes of 2004 and 2005. And when you look at that, and let me turn the PAMP layer off now, you can see what happened. And some of these houses were under constructions. There were pools under construction. There were pools that were kind of sitting out into space on pilings where all the land had washed away. And when you look at this, after the emergency permits were issued by the state that created seawalls along a portion of the shoreline, and then it transitioned into riprap revetments along the shoreline. And then when you got to the last two lots in this development, they really didn't suffer much damage, and they had native vegetation and mangroves along the shoreline. So it's a kind of a poster child also for why vegetative solutions sometimes are better.
But as you can see,
Could I add a question mark here?
Of course.
Would it be okay, Madam Chair?
Of course.
In some of your language here, there are new technologies that do a really good job of wave attenuation and would actually be very appropriate right here. And if in this language, in this chapter in particular, you had the availability to use some of those new technologies, it might be very helpful. Because right now, it's very difficult to get those approvals unless it's under an emergency permit. And I think this is the kind of place where the ear really should be used. And I think that this kind of technology and innovation is exactly appropriate for this kind of circumstance.
So that's a recommendation we could take.
My recommendation, I mean, just, for instance, reef arches would be ideal in this place.
Can you say that again, Jim?
Reef arches.
Okay.
That's why I was going to ask you to repeat it as well.
So, I mean, that's just an example of a new technology that didn't exist 5 years ago, that does exist now, that is showing really good promise.
I'm going to make some notes here.
What was the first thing you mentioned? Wave something?
Wave attenuation. Because that's what, I mean, unfortunately, in the coastal element, not a lot of language is spent on erosion and erosion control, but seawalls are exactly not that.
Yeah, and this is a scenario, this development, when the storms hit, had a preserve area management plan and typical language in preserve
And they
area
had
management.
50-foot setbacks at least, and
yes, it did.
they won't.
Well, as you can see, the property line's out in the water now.
Yeah, I mean, I can tell you, and sorry for going offline here, but in an experiment this summer, we had 10 feet in 2 weeks of accretion.
Yeah, it is really, these shorelines move.
Yeah.
There's no way for us to control it, and Mother Nature takes over in some cases like this. This is an example where they got the emergency permits under a governor's order, and now it's inconsistent with our plan. It's inconsistent with our site plan. And so this policy that we're proposing provides some means of recognizing and accommodating and dealing with the situation after the fact, that otherwise we're looking at it and saying, well, we can't really permit it since it's conflicting with the plan.
Yeah, and we did add some language to the land development regulations to speak to amending preserve area management plans in these circumstances.
But these are offshore rather than onshore, and so there is a navigable water issue. There's also probably going to be a seagrass issue. But under these emergency orders, that's the place to allow for these new technologies.
Can you go back to page 34 or page 21 that we had? You scroll up just a little bit. I think you'll see some of the language that's what you're aiming for, Mr. Moyer, is in the instance a seawall is permitted, the design shall incorporate native plant, revegetation, riprap materials, pervious interlocking brick systems, filter mats, et cetera.
It's all onshore, unfortunately, and what I'm proposing is
Outside?
Outside the mean high water line.
Okay.
Yeah.
Oh,
And the challenge, the potential challenge with that is when you're going offshore, you're going over sovereignty lands.
And it's going to be an Army Corps issue, and
I was just
but-
saying that, I'm like, yeah.
But, and it's a seagrass issue. I mean, there's a lot involved, but this is why, under an emergency order, it has a lot more potential merit than it would under normal circumstances.
Well, we'll discuss this with Amy, but I think our concern also, like you've identified, is the below the mean high water line.
We don't have much authority.
We don't have authority.
No, you don't.
We don't have zoning and land use in
Solid
submerged
question.
lands. Yeah.
All right, Daryl, does that conclude your presentation, or you have more to discuss?
That concludes the introduction, and then you have a staff report with a number of changes. If you'd like to discuss any of those, we're open to.
I do have some more comments.
Sure.
No, I wasn't
Yeah.
shutting you down. I was making sure he was concluded. And any questions from the board members, please?
So one of the problems with just talking about resiliency and sea level rise is you miss a lot of the other issues that have to do with climate change. And one of them is heat. And part of the sea level rise issue is thermal expansion, but also a lot of the environmental degradation that is happening is because, for instance, we can't hold as much oxygen in the water because of the heat. So ignoring the other issues that have to do with human-caused climate change and calling it just resiliency and sea level rise misses a lot of really important points. We miss the capacity to plan for carbon sequestration, for instance, but that's not necessarily in the coastal element, but mangrove swamps are an important piece of that. When we talk about a reluctance to lose mangrove marshland because of mosquito impoundments, they also are very important habitat, and we need to preserve that habitat for wildlife as well as for resiliency. And I think the two are hand in glove. I mean, I don't see how you can separate conservation land and green space in the margin between us and the ocean as being anything but resiliency, as well as an attempt and an effective attempt at protecting ourselves against climate change, including heat rise, because the more concrete our shorelines are, the more concrete our urban areas are, the higher the heat gain we're going to have. And that's going to have not only bad effects on our weather, bad effects on our health, but bad effects on the environment. And I really think that the more we can integrate climate change rather than just resiliency planning, the better off we're going to be.
Okay. So, yeah, if you have any recommendations for language, again, we will discuss this.
I think that heat is an important piece of this.
Okay.
Because it really does have major impact. I think, really the heat issue is probably as the carbon sequestration issue really is in the next chapter that we're going to be talking about.
I was going to say.
But in
I
the
don't know
coastal
if-
element, mangroves in particular are an important carbon sink, as well as being a very important wave attenuator. And I think that the more we can talk about energy attenuation along those shorelines, rather than hardening, the better off we're going to be.
I think this,
Because it's not just, it's also human-induced erosion. We've got a lot of boat wake erosion happening throughout our waterways right now, and seawalls aren't going to help us. They're just not.
correct me if I'm wrong, staff, I think this chapter kind of defines what you can and can't do for hardening their shorelines. It doesn't mean they have to be a seawall. I think it's just kind of defining what they can and can't do.
No,
And I understand
right.
where you're coming from on that, and the energy code side of it in general. So our code changes every 3 years, and so that's going to be difficult for staff to follow along with that. And a lot of things you're saying are in the Florida Building Code, but I'm not sure that that's appropriate for this chapter revision per se. And I'm not discrediting your thoughts on that.
And this
Just
is
saying
an
that.
initial, attempt to address some of those issues that were in the sea level rise report that we're required to put in the comp plan. as well as what's in Florida statutes, but there's going to be opportunities to readdress other issues that Amy will be bringing back, and in particular, right regulations and regulatory standards that for permitting and development.
Because virtually everything is going to be affected in coastal Florida by sea level rise. I mean, every in-ground storage tank, every in-ground pollutant is going to be affected by rising sea levels.
Yeah, and we have
Every drainage issue you can think of is going to be affected by sea level rise.
We have staff in the Public Works Department that go to those meetings around the state and discuss those issues because it's a state issue.
Yep.
And yeah, so unfortunately, Amy's not here tonight, but that's really the person that can kind of speak to a lot of those concepts.
And, you know, this is kind of hardening the language between the two chapters per se, and it's enforcing what we want to continue in Martin County. And, you know, obviously what you're proposing is going to be a whole nother language and thought process we would have to bring up in general. Because, I mean, we're going to be an island one day, right? I had kids. I was teaching
We're gonna
teaching
be a reef
classes.
one day.
I was teaching classes last week to these kids at Indian River State College. Like, why do we have basements? And I'm like, oh, let me talk to you about groundwater level. And I get it.
We were a reef already.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Go back to it.
over and over
We
and
make
over.
the motion to approve this?
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, I really do think, though, that being bold and talking about climate change in bold letters rather than just resiliency is where we need to go.
There's a motion.
Yep.
I'll second it.
What's the motion? I'm sorry. To approve?
To approve.
Approve.
Yeah. So got a second? Any further discussion? All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Comment.
Oh, wait, we have what?
Do we have?
We do, oh, public comment. Would you like to bum rush the microphone? Okay. Nope, she's not getting that. All right, so, all in favor, we said aye?
Aye.
That has passed, okay. We are moving on to another exciting item.
Conservation open space.
NPH-5, Comprehensive Plan Amendment 24-09, Conservation
Okay,
and Open Space.
give me a second
and
to
we
change
have-
my paperwork.
And my comments from the last section are pretty much going to be repeated again here.
Okay.
Well, if you said them once, you don't need to say them again. It's getting late.
That's what I just said.
There's a lot less,
Said ditto, so we're going to go with that. All right, hit it, Daryl.
there's a lot less in this chapter going on. I'll just do a brief introduction, and Daryl can hit,
Do this.
I think there's like 3 high points that need to be discussed here. But this is mostly cleanup, and this is not anywhere near as involved.
Okay. All right.
I
with-
don't have 70 items in this one.
Thank you, Daryl, for keeping it short. Do we have any questions from our gentlemen here?
Did you-
Board members, fellow
You want
board
to say
members?
anything at all?
Yeah. So just to start, you've
I
got a
didn't mean to
staff
cut you
report
off.
here, and the items are briefly noted under the issues section. And so we have these particular issues identified here, and as you can see, it's pretty brief. And I was going to go into one particular item that Clyde thought we should talk about, which involves redacting an old map that we have on our website and in the comp plan. That's called the Wetlands Composite Map.
Figure 9-1.
So let's see, where is,
But the hydric soil map stays the same,
We would continue to use the data.
but you're going to drag out the old hydric soil map the same way.
the hydric soils are still useful. Yeah,
They are.
From the 80s,
Yeah.
yeah, that's a useful layer. The NWI layer that was created as part of this composite map is from the 85. And now we have stuff from 2022, so it's very dated. And then there's a satellite layer that was used in here that is almost worthless at this point. It's from the 90s, and it's very granular. I think it was done at such a high level that when you zoom in, it's very blocky, and we don't even use that anymore.
Different chlorophyll levels.
So the other consideration and concern is putting a map out there saying that these are the wetlands of Martin County is very misleading. Somebody sees their property And this is just data showing where there's a probability to have wetlands. This is not a map of wetlands. But if you look at the title, and people over the years have said, well, the county has a map of all their wetlands, that's not what this is. So we're suggesting some changes to the language that I can go through very quickly. Let me go to that page.
So the gist of it is you're replacing the map.
So we're continuing to use the concept of using a composite of different data to look for potential wetlands, but we don't want to use that static and dated data that's in that old map.
Understood.
So this is where it's addressed in the comp plan, so we're proposing to strike this information. So it is referencing the 81 hydric soils, which are still useful, the 1985 National Wetlands Inventory, which has been updated, the satellite classification data, which we don't use anymore. It's not good. And then we're suggesting just to kind of supplement the language here to recognize that we're still using multiple data sources that are modernized and updated on a regular basis to do the same thing. So we use aerial imagery to identify the presence of wetlands typically, and then we use this other data to look at areas where there's a potential based on what's shown in an NWI layer, what's shown on a topography layer, a digital elevational model, on a infrared aerial, and other types of information we have. So we're
Actual
not.
delineation still requires vegetative species identification.
Yeah, and that's in this section, and that hasn't changed. So regardless of what any digital data source will show you, you have to delineate wetlands in the field in accordance with the methodology established by the state.
Stuff, yep.
But if the South Florida Water Management District is the one who certifies the wetlands, why is the county getting so involved in it?
We're backing away from getting so involved in it. We're just referring to data sources as a means of pointing people in the right direction and not trying to make a static map. When this map was created, the data sources weren't on the web and widely available as they are today. So, I mean, Daryl can show you on the web how it's widely available, and you can turn it on and turn it off and see so much more than what this static map from.
I've got that queued up if you'd like to look at it.
No, the district's new mapping system is just pretty amazing what you
Yeah.
can do with it.
Yeah.
It is.
So is ours.
Oh, look at him getting in
NRCS and USDA's map is
It is. If you do, there's layers to it and everything else. So I get
Like
it. The
a
GIS
demonstration.
system is pretty amazing.
So I'm just going to go into an area of the county here. And again, we usually start with just looking at the aerials and visually interpreting what we're seeing with these low depressional areas that pop out to us as wetland scientists, as you can kind of, after you look at this for many years, they just jump out at you. So we have data going back to the 50s. So we can go back in the time machine and see where the wetlands were. And we can go back when we have violations and look at a wetland that shows up in 2022 that might have been impacted by excavation and filling and do that comparative analysis. But speaking to the composite layer that we had, we still have parts of it here available. So to show you that, the hydric soils are still pretty good, and it's still used and still used in delineating wetlands as well in the field. The NWI layer this layer is from the old composite map from '85, and those areas are shown in blue. But we have new data for the NWI from 2022, and as you can see, it's a bit different and it's more modernized because it actually identifies the types of wetlands in the layers as well. And then again, we talked about the danger of having a map saying that these are the wetlands of Martin County. Well, when you look at a map like this and you're a layperson, perhaps you're like, well, I'm seeing all these wetlands here, but when the Water Management District goes out and does a proper delineation, this is what was actually delineated in the field. So like in this area, for example, you have areas of false positives here. and areas of false negatives where nothing was shown but a wetland was delineated. Here's a composite layer that had everything together as a composite, as a high predictability, but no wetlands were delineated there, they were delineated here. So we're still using this data for informational purposes and evaluation, but we just want to move away from that old map.
Understood? All right. Darren?
The only thing we would add to this presentation is acknowledge that there's a new goal, 8.3, which goes into resilience, as well as the resilience language that was sprinkled through the goal 8.2.
You already approved that one, Clyde.
We also want to acknowledge that we are updating the maps, the figures attached to the, this
That was
one.
chapter
Yeah.
8, yeah.
Never mind me. We're done.
Okay, that's fine.
Move approval.
Okay, we have a motion and a second discussion. Hit it,
I
Jim.
think, honestly, I do feel that carbon sequestration and heat absorption by green space is a really important component of why we should be protecting these areas.
So, Jim, are you looking at putting in things in the comp plan just as something to prepare for regulations, to write regulations to address that concept, or?
Not discrediting it. I don't know that this is the appropriate space for what you're saying.
It's part of the policy for why we
No,
should
I
be
understand, but
protecting
this
these
is,
areas.
I understand, but this is a map. It's like a regulatory informational.
I'm not speaking about I'm speaking about.
Okay, that's what we
the
have, we have a motion and a second.
Element, conservation, open space.
Okay, well, that's not here.
That's what we would be making a motion on.
Okay,
The map is a part of this.
okay. So we have a second, we have a motion and a second. So are you modifying or
I'm
proposing
just
another motion?
requesting that it be noted.
I'll amend my motions so that it will be noted. And so, will you,
Yeah, I mean, it gets silly.
Was that a second? I don't know
Yes,
anymore.
yes.
I'm like,
We
okay.
both amended.
I don't know. Okay, all right. All in favor?
aye.
Aye. Okay, gentlemen, we are, I'm sorry, public comment. Yeah, just feel like gonna hit the mic. All right, no. All right, we are moving on. Motion to adjourn, please.
I just want to say one thing.
No,
I
I said
had
the
a
motion to
basement
adjourn.
in my old house, and I live on the river. And it was dry as a bone.
There's ways to do it.
Must have been way up high then.
There's hydrostatic pressure in the water and the walls, and I explained it to the kids, and so,
No,
anyway.
the only thing that was in that were rats.
Oh, well, then, there you go. Yeah, okay, fantastic. All right, so on
Madam Chair,
that,
may I
can we?
real quick, just while I have everyone here?
So, hold
I
on,
will
one,
not be here the first.
pause, gentlemen.
This, I'm talking about the 12th. Is everyone going to be here for that meeting?
Oh, September 12th?
Yep.
Yeah,
No?
sounds like a day that we should go to a concert. I think you guys were last time. Not probably the same one, but
I'll be here.
I have it on my calendar, and I will be here as well.
Thank you.
I don't think so.
And you guys can call me and remind me, so I'm good with that too. All right, did we get it? We didn't get a motion to adjourn.
Yeah, we did.
We did, okay, fine. All right, adjourn.